You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with Mike and Jesse.
How are you feeling about a little meeting on Sunday?
That's good. Yeah.
Good.
Got a lot of stuff hashed out.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the general direction of that show will be very, very fluid, I think. It's going to be one of those things where we can do different things with every show. We don't have to keep like to a strict format.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Today we're covering a soundtrack, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to talk about the Game Awards for a little bit. Jesse, you had some things to say about the Game Awards. You were excited about some stuff. I am too. I was looking through the announcements, and although I didn't watch the Game Awards, I am very excited for a few titles.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Game Awards?
No, I didn't. I was planning on it, and then I lost track of the day, so I didn't. Oops.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's not always something you can set aside 5 hours of time for.
Yeah. It's like watching the Olympics.
Yeah.
You just have to block out like half a day for it.
God damn you, Jeff Keighley.
But yeah, I mean, I always really enjoy seeing, who the nominees and who the winners are and stuff like that. But like over the last few years, I mean, the Video Game Awards has kind of turned into a pretty big deal. I mean, to be perfectly honest, when they first got established, it was always kind of just this small little thing that I think that kind of society at large didn't really pay a lot of attention to. And that's really changed in the last few years. I mean, heck, the article that I pulled up to actually take a look at like who all the winners were and stuff was on Sports Illustrated,
right? Of
all websites.
Yeah. I mean,
just the first one that came up that was actually laid out in an easy to follow way.
Yeah. It's weird when you think of simply like 10 years ago. I mean, gaming was big then, but it has skyrocketed. It's ballooned into this event. And, a lot of people it's part of our culture now. It's not like, if you play esports, you're a loser. It's, if you play esports, you're making big bucks. And there's a lot of people who put a lot of money into that. And I know it's not your cup of tea to watch people play games or speed runs, but it's an exciting thing for a lot of people, and it's on par at times with major sporting events. So it's definitely grown in the last 10 years of the Video Game Awards. And, it's not just a couple nerds talking about how much they like video games now. It's quite a big deal.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I kind of appreciate about it is, it's not like you're watching the Oscars where there's like, 64 different categories and awards for basically, every aspect of either art direction, film direction, best associate AD, like it just, the list goes on and on and on. There are a lot of awards. I think there's like 30.
It's quite the list. Yeah.
It's quite the list, but I feel like most of them are, pretty good categories by and large. I didn't realize that there was a content creator of the year category. Sorry, y'all. We did not get a nomination for that.
We did not get nominated. I tried.
Nope.
I campaigned and it didn't work out, but we're good.
Nope.
Live to fight another day.
Good on Casio for winning content creator of the year with his 6.2 million followers on Twitch.
That's nuts.
He went viral evidently just this year for his Roblox Dress to Impress streams, which I'm pretty sure my daughter plays.
That's cool.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
I wanted to pick your brain specifically about the winner, the game of the year. Do you feel like that was deserved?
Yeah. I did. I wouldn't, if you'd asked me 9 months ago if I felt like Astrobot was going to be the game that won Game of the Year and best game direction of the year, I would have said that you were probably
on drugs.
On drugs of some sort. I mean, Astrobot basically, there were two other games in his franchise, I think, before this came out. The first one was for like PS4, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it was something that you could only use if you got like the PSVR of the time or something like that. It was supposed to be basically a tech demo for it. And then
Astro's Playroom
came out with PS5. And as soon as that came out and my son started playing through it, I'm like, oh, this isn't just a tech demo. This is like a legit game. It's seriously fun.
Oh yeah, it's a very fun time. I had a lot of fun with that. Even my wife picked it up, and she doesn't really play games, but she likes that kind of stuff, those kind of platformers, and sucked her in too. Yeah.
So when we saw that Astrobot was coming out and my son was super excited, I was really excited, and early reviews started likening it to like Mario 64 for the new generation. It is. It's a legitimately great game. Like, is it deep? No. Is it complicated? No. It's just a damn good game. Like, they just released a free couple of Christmas levels.
Nice.
That my son was having a blast with yesterday, and they're super well done. Like, cute, engaging. It's just great. So kudos to Team Asobi, because man, that they really did something special.
Yeah. And I wasn't asking that question because I was like, that is bullshit. No. I do believe that, only having played Astro's Playroom, I can tell how much care they put into that. I am very much looking forward to playing Astro, the new question.
Yeah.
And, the new game.
It really it speaks volumes to like the level of like health of the video game industry, and also just the level of innovation that can take place, because you'd expect that Game of the Year would be something like some big AAA title like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth,
the game with all the money behind it.
A game with all the money behind it. And like, I don't know what the production budget for Astrobot was, but I guarantee you it was not the same as the production budget for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Hellblade 2 or some of the other winners. Really impressive.
I was looking forward to the Game Awards. I didn't watch it, but obviously I had my eye on Silent Hill 2, and they lost all their categories, which hurt my heart, but I understand it. It's they're going up against RPGs, and it's really hard to win against that kind of stuff. But even Final Fantasy VII was losing some of their categories to what is that other RPG? Best narrative. Yeah, they lost to Metaphor Refantasio, an Atlas game. That I was kind of. It's funny because I hadn't even heard of Metaphor. Neither did I.
I mean, there's just so much content out there. It's just like trying to keep on top of every TV show that comes out. Like, it's impossible. There's way more games than I'm ever going to be able to play in a year. So there's some stuff that kind of snuck by me. I'm really surprised that this Metaphor Refantasio game did, though, because it looks pretty great. I watched some trailers for it after I saw that it won, and I might have to pick that up.
Yeah, should be a good time. Atlas is they're one of those companies that have really in-depth and detailed RPGs, and sometimes they're pretty intimidating, but this one looks pretty good. But so good on them. Good on everyone who won. Congratulations. I know you were all waiting for us to say something about it, but I want to talk about just shortly here what you're most excited about coming up, the announcements from Game Awards. And there are a few, sir, that I'm looking forward to.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm most looking forward to. I know Borderlands 4 was, displayed a little bit. We knew about it, but they showed some gameplay. I think I'm more looking forward to Ninja Gaiden Ragebound.
Oh, man. It looks
that looks so good. I didn't even expect that. I had no idea the new Ninja Gaiden was coming out.
And like, to be fair, I'm still not done with Cyber Shadow, which basically plays a lot like the new Ninja Gaiden game. The new Ninja Gaiden game looks pretty dang flashy.
Fuck yeah.
We'll put it that way. I'm impressed and very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? I don't know if you've watched any of Secret Level, that new show.
Not yet. I know about it. I'm aware of it, and I know I need to get to it, but I have not.
I've watched. I mean, it just came out a couple of days ago, so no shame on that. But it's for anybody who hasn't checked it out, it's basically it's an anthology. So it's got a bunch of animated shorts that are all based on different, primarily video game IPs. The first one is like Dungeons and Dragons. There's also one based on the Space Marine 2, which has been kind of taking the video game world by storm. And one of them is about Pac-Man, which I did not expect to be as dark and gritty and violent as that
I gotta watch this show
episode was. Yeah, apparently it's getting a video game.
What?
Shadow Labyrinth.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. It's just to read what it says in the announcement. If you caught Pac-Man's secret level episode on Prime Video, you're prepared for Bandai Namco's new darker take on the dot-chomping ghost. A 2D action platformer. Shadow Labyrinth is definitely a swerve for the character who celebrates his 45th birthday in 2025. How about that?
Well, you know what? I look forward to seeing what that turns into. The fun thing about video games is that you can go back to, where we all started and put these fucking obnoxious and ridiculous spins on them, because at one point they were just dots on a screen. And you know what? He had like a Pac-Man adventure game that was 3D on the regular PlayStation, I think. And yeah, it's time for an upgrade. So let's see what they come out with.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a gazillion. I feel like there were at least as many trailers as there were awards, and there were like 30 awards. So I could go through and count up the trailers, but I'm not going to do that right now. The one that I'm the most excited for,
here it comes,
is that. Well, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of shit in here. I would say I'm probably the most excited for the Okami sequel.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming at all.
No.
I didn't think that game was going to be coming back. I thought it was just a one and done piece of art.
20 years old, and you never hear boo about it. They remastered it some years ago. I remember the hubbub about how they used an IGN picture for the cover of the Wii game when they came out. Remember?
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah, actually, I still have a copy of the PS4, HD remaster, and I showed my son and wife rather, the trailer for the sequel, and immediately my son was like, I need to go play Okami. So we cracked it out yesterday and started playing it. He's playing it again tonight after dinner.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. I would say that's probably the one that I'm the most excited about, mostly because like I said, I didn't see it coming like at all.
Yeah.
In terms of the game that I think is probably going to grab my interest if the trailer holds up to the gameplay, is Naughty Dog's new game, Intergalactic.
Yep.
I think it's called The Heretic Prophet.
That sounds right.
It looks super cool. I'm really into sci-fi, cyberpunky, spaceships and neon lights and shit like that. So I think that's going to be an absolute blast. Did you get a chance to look at that one?
I didn't look at that one. I think I kind of got blindsided by the retro type games that were being announced. And did you come across Double Dragon Revive?
No, I didn't see that one.
I don't think it's part of the Game Awards, but it's just showing up today on my feed or whatever. And I'm just kind of getting taken in all these retro directions. And there's Okami, Double Dragon, and of course, Ninja Gaiden. So that's kind of where I've been focused recently. But what did you think about Slay the Spire 2?
Yeah, I was getting there. Slay the Spire 2 looks great. Obviously, I've been playing the heck out of that. When did the first one come out? Like 2015. It only took me however many years to actually pick it up. But hey,
man, it happens, man.
It happens. Slay the Spire 2 looks fantastic. The trailer was amazing. It looks like my beautiful boy, the Defect, might be out of the game.
Oh no!
Very sad.
Very sad.
Spoilers, folks. It's in the trailer. He ain't one of the playable characters. And it does look like at one point that you might see him covered in moss or sludge or something. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can unlock him later on or something.
Maybe.
What are you going to do? That's the character that I'm working on getting to Ascension 20 with right now. I'm up to 17, so I'm getting close.
Almost there.
Yeah. Also pretty cool. I'm not going to buy the game, but like whatever. Tekken 8 has
Yeah.
Clive from Final Fantasy
I
16
saw
as a
that.
playable character.
Jesus Christ. And Virtua Fighter's
Hey.
coming back?
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening?
Turok's getting a revival as well. That's not a game I expected to be coming back. Although I guess with Ark being as popular as it has been for the last few years. Yeah.
That being said, there's a Jurassic Park game coming out that's supposed to be a survival game, which I pitched years ago with my friend. I'm like, we need to be plopped down in the middle of the island and just try to make it out alive. But I'm looking forward to that, and I think dinosaurs are making a comeback.
Dinosaurs are making a comeback. And like, you know, not to go through every single release, but they're two of probably the biggest teases that they had at the show were for game series that I've never played, and I probably should because they're right up my alley, but a new Elden Ring co-op multiplayer thing, which looks pretty cool, and Witcher 4, which the trailer looks killer. Yeah. Oh my God.
Two of my friends messaged me about The Witcher, so I was like, okay, here we go.
I haven't watched the other, the Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian creators' new project, the trailer for that yet, so I'll probably do that afterwards. But
I would like to give a shout out to Wukong for Best Action Game. That is my buddy Tawan's jam. He likes that game, and it actually won something. It lost pretty much everything else, I think, but as Best Action Game, that's a whole fucking category. Good shit.
And like big props in terms of awards. Big props to Baldur's Gate 3 for winning Best Community Support because, good Lord, it's got a great community, and it's just the game is just an absolute work of art. I could talk about it.
Absolutely. Just being on the periphery of that game, I can tell how positively you talk about it, and John. And I think that award speaks volumes. What is most important about that is the fact that people are rallying around it, even though it is a one and done game. They're not getting anything else. And the fact that they've got such a great community and they're supportive of the developers, I think that's awesome. It's one of those princess tales, you know, it's almost a no-name company coming out and delivering a game of that status and just doing that well and just having this rally of support. I just really think that's a good thing and a good, well-deserved award.
And apparently I need to check out Balatro because that's an indie game and it's a roguelike and there's cards in it, so I'm probably going to like it.
Oh boy. It takes a lot for me to get into a roguelike, but
I was just playing Hades.
Were you?
2 days ago.
Yeah.
I haven't played that in a while.
That's one of the few that I like.
Pretty dope. Trying to get my 10 clears so I can finish the story and then move on to Hades 2.
Yeah. Hades 2. I wonder what, you know what? I'm not even going to pick it up right now because I'm going to get sucked into that. I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to come back to something I'm playing right now. And then it'll sit on my shelf for another few years.
Wise.
So
what are we talking about today, Mike?
We are talking about a soundtrack. I was going through my soundtracks and we had discussed, you know, what's the next title going to be? And I'm like, well, we haven't done a Sega game again in a while, and I want to start getting that catalog up. So I threw out there, because I had heard great things about it, Beyond Oasis. And I was surprised to find out while doing the notes for the show that it is once again Yuzo Koshiro. I love this man. I love his work. And I was then surprised again when it didn't turn out great this time. I don't want to spoil anything for everyone or anyone, and I don't know how to feel about this one, man. Because everything I heard about Beyond Oasis is that it's really good, and I believe it is. I think the game itself, I watched some of a long play, and it looks very smooth, very fun, very engaging. Combat, it's very Secret of Mana, Legend of Zelda-y. So it looked interesting, and it looked fun. But for me, the soundtrack kind of fell flat. And I'm excited to talk about it because I feel horrible about it. Yuzo Koshiro is one of those composers I would never say a bad thing about. But there are reasons, and some of this, the way this hit me today, I think are more hardware focused. So how did this one grab you initially? I know you had never heard of it.
No, I'd never heard of this game. What was it, like Genesis or Mega Drive?
Genesis, yeah.
I don't even know. Genesis.
1995.
Right, cool. Yeah, I'd never heard of it. I did have a couple of friends that had Segas, and this is just not a game that any of them had, or at least not one that they played when I was around. So I was interested to check it out, mostly out of curiosity, because, you know, we've talked before, like I was never really a Genesis kid, and I never...
Me either.
None of the soundtracks or the sound design on pretty much any game that I played from the platform really grabbed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, you know, listening to some of them after the fact as an adult, like I think that it's just that you either like the Sega sound chip or you don't, or maybe you just don't in general. Like, I think maybe people just don't in general, because there were some limitations of the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know the technical details of what those might have been, but I'll be honest, maybe I just came into this soundtrack with like low expectations, because I was like, oh, it's a Genesis game. Like, it's the soundtrack's not going to be that good. All I can think of are stuff like, you know, Altered Beasts, or like the stark difference between certain game soundtracks on Genesis versus the same games on like SNES. A perfect example of that is Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, Super Ghouls and Ghosts is probably one of the better soundtracks that's on the SNES. And if you listen to the Sega version of it, it's just kind of like, it's tinny, it lacks depth, it's a little grating. And for the same composition to sound so starkly different on two different platforms, it tells me that there's either a serious limitation to the sound chips on the Genesis, or whoever was responsible for porting it over there just didn't take the time to do it justice. But where I've seen that same thing kind of play out with a couple of different titles, I just kind of came to the conclusion that, yeah, there's a hardware limitation here.
Absolutely.
So coming into this game, Beyond Oasis, I wasn't expecting much. And I'll be honest, I kind of liked it. I mean, it's not
There's
great.
stuff to like. Absolutely.
There's stuff to like in here. And, you know, I didn't even look at who the composer was before I started listening to it, because I didn't want to build up those expectations.
Right. Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, it's pretty good for what it is.
Okay. Fair enough.
He's like,
fair enough. No,
prove it to me. I don't know about that.
No, it's total. I'm probably being too hard on this, and it's not. At the end of the day, I don't think it's Koshiro. I refuse to believe it's Koshiro. I think it is a hardware thing. It's limitations of that sound chip and what is able to be produced. And part of it falls on him, in my humble opinion, is because he chose to continue with the sounds that he chose to continue with. And it's hard. There are good things about it, and I do go over some of those things in my notes here, but you know, overall, the soundtrack is enveloped in a sort of dark, deep tone mysticism. You know, it's a story about a guy who finds a magic armlet, and he is summoned to stop someone else who has a silver magic armlet. And it's a mystical story, mystical tale. It's action packed. It's one of those games where you're running around, you've got a health bar, top down, and you are fighting off enemies and uncovering the truth of the situation, and hopefully saving the world. It's an action game, it's an RPG game, but it's also, I think I want to say it falls more on the action game. And the music, I think when I was watching the long play, it just was hitting me in a weird way. One, extremely overbearing. It takes center fucking stage. Whether you're playing or not, it is in your face. It is heavy, loud, and I think it takes away from the experience. What I was watching just felt like everything on screen took a backseat, and I found myself wanting to pay more attention to what was happening on screen, like those sound effects and the engagement of fighting and kind of what's going on, the exploration. And the volume of this soundtrack on the game it's pretty fucking jarring. And I don't know if I'm just getting petty or something, but it just struck me as this music is so loud, I kind of want to hear the game right now. I don't know what that's about, because normally if it's an exploration game and you can get really lost in the music, I'm okay with that kind of stuff. But this one, it felt a little overbearing and a little, can we tone it down a little bit? I don't know if that's just me.
No, I don't think it's just you at all. I listened to, or I should say I watched a little bit of some long play as well, which I tend to do pretty much any time we're covering a game that maybe I've only played once or twice, or
not at all.
Time, or in this case, not at all. And, I did find there were a couple of kind of wonky things with the music mix and how it presents in the game. So the background music does seem quite loud to me. It could just be that whoever recorded the, one or two different long plays that I watched had kind of messed around with the sound effects and the music to maybe tone the music up and the sound effects down. It's very possible. Who knows? It did sound pretty much the same in the two different videos that I watched, and they weren't by the same person.
It's the mix.
So I think it's just the mix.
Yep.
There were a couple other kind of weird things with it, like anytime the character zones between two different areas, the music would duck
immediately
and then come back up, which was a little, it was a little annoying. And then anytime that the character like picks up an item, it would cause a break in the music track, but it wasn't like if you pick up like a heart container in Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how to describe it. Like it's a smoother break. You get the sound effect of picking up the heart container, but the music kind of seems like it continues uninterrupted.
Yep.
There's like a half-second gap on either side of the music cutting out and the sound effect cutting in.
It's definitely not as polished.
That kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah,
it was not as polished for sure. In terms of the actual music, one kind of piece of feedback that I had on it was that if somebody played a selection of different songs from this soundtrack and I had to try and guess what kind of game it was from,
be hard.
Middle Eastern themed adventure game is not what any of my top 20 guesses probably would have been.
Yeah.
It sounds almost like a 70s progressive rock. Some of those like old animated movies from the 70s that had like, progressive rock soundtracks to them. That's kind of what it sounds like. There was actually one point when I was listening to this and taking some notes that I paused the soundtrack and I pulled up another tab and started listening to Yes. And the synths are like the same. It's literally like, especially, I mean, just getting into the first song, which how about I just name one right now? We'll go out of order a little bit. Song number 4, Battle. It's just a generic battle theme. It starts out kind of low and slow, and then you get some like horns and synths that start coming in and building, and then it builds to this kind of crescendo after about 30 seconds or so, and it legitimately sounds like something out of a 70s music video. Like it's wild. Wild. What do you think about this one, Mike? Did you happen to give this particular song a listen?
Absolutely. I listened to all of them, and
yeah,
I was hoping for more, but yeah, it does sound like, now that you mention it, there is a B-movie quality aspect to this where it's, have you ever seen the movie Planet of Dinosaurs?
Yes, a really long time ago though.
This soundtrack, and I'm not even shitting you, I didn't even piece together that that's what was happening, but that movie popped into my head while I was listening to this. Not this song, but this whole soundtrack during my lunch break. And now that you mention it, yes, 100 times yes, that is what's going on here. It is a few friends got together and shot an action movie in the 70s, and that's what's happening here. So the low bass, the blaring horns, they're kind of corny. Before we go too much further, ladies and gentlemen, it's the horns that are doing it to me, okay? They take away from the soundtrack in ways that I can't describe. They're probably the corniest sounding horns I've ever heard. It's not, again, Koshiro's fault. It's the sound chip's ability to process a horn-like instrument. And unfortunately, he uses them a lot in this soundtrack.
Yeah.
So this song is no different. It's it just gives it takes away legitimacy from it, in my opinion. It's an instrument being portrayed that nullifies all the good stuff about the rest of the song, whatever song you're talking about. It overshadows everything whenever there's a horn on there. And it's so cheesy sounding that I'm like, I can't get behind this right now. I'm not trying to shit on this, ladies and gentlemen. Yuzo Koshiro, if you are listening, which I highly doubt you are, this is not personal. I feel horrible, but I don't know, man. The song that I wanted to talk about, The Story of Thor, which is the game's title, Beyond Oasis in America. It starts with epic horns, very heroic horns, and despite what I just said about horns, there's some success there. It has a grand entrance. It quickly then descends into, a more ominous and deep melody with the horns. They're still providing some heroicism. The majority of the song, however, has staccato strings giving a sinister theme to it. And I thought that was an interesting choice because it's telling a story of strife and triumph, but spends a lot of time toiling in that darkness. The horns go from very bright and very happy to very low and intimidating. It is an ambitious song with many elements. It does feel a little bit, I know we mentioned Zelda earlier, kind of like the antithesis of Zelda's theme, where Zelda's very bright and happy. The Hyrule theme, let's fucking go. This one is more there's an undercurrent of hostility here, and it's very present, and I think that is the driving factor of this song. I don't know if you felt the same way, but that's kind of where I went with it. A little bit more serious than, say, your Legend of Zelda Hyrule theme.
Yeah, I mean, so the sense that this song gives me is that it's playing while your character is discovering basically the reason for the game, the whole story behind it. It reminds me of like a theme that you would see playing as a character is looking over like a wall of tapestries or reading a dusty old book, and if there were voiceovers in Genesis, which there were not, you'd hear like a narrator playing, a narrator reading through the things that the character's learning about the story at that time. Like it's got that very almost like a downplayed but epic feel to it.
Yeah,
it's quite frankly, this I think is probably one of the better songs on the album, and I think a lot of that is because it is quite understated, especially as compared to a lot of like the battle and exploration themes like you talked about. The whole album is sort of, it's got like a real boisterous quality to it, lots of big horns, lots of bass, and I feel like this song leans away from those kind of like brassy, harsh sounding horns better than a lot of the other ones on the album.
And they're understated. They're not in your face. They're not blaring, and they're not coming at you at all corners of the song. It's very, okay, we're going to go away. We're going to be subtle a little bit. There's a couple bright moments of heroic horns and triumphant, but the other instruments take center stage, which is why I gravitate to this song. It's longer. It's got some story to it, some emotion, some mysticism that I was talking about earlier. And like you said, great explanation. Your hero is in a dusty library like Indiana Jones, just looking through documents, and he's about to go on an adventure. That is a great analogy. So I think this song captures that element because he is learning about his task that has befallen him. And the narration of the story, while not a voice, is very much, this is your journey. I am bestowing upon you the power of the armlet. So go forth and kick ass.
Yeah. And, I think that there are some other real gems on this album. Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't really mention it, but as far as a soundtrack for a game of the day, it's relatively long. It's like over an hour. Yeah. And this last track that we were just listening to, The Story of Thor, it's, I think, the longest song on the album. It's about 4 minutes and 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of cool because it actually goes through multiple movements. Mm-hmm. Like to your point, it kind of, it oscillates back and forth between these big, heroic sounding segments and then a lot of, more understated stuff that, kind of speaks to the character learning a little bit more about his purpose in the story. Mm-hmm. I think that there are definitely some other real gems in this soundtrack. Oh, yeah. There were a few that really kind of stood out to me. One of them was track number 19, Evil Territory.
I've got that on my notes too.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Like it's got this, I think probably because it doesn't have any of those big brassy horns.
You can guess why I picked it.
It does things that maybe the sound chip is a little bit better at.
Yes. It played to its strengths.
It played to its strengths. It's kind of airy. It's ethereal.
Mm-hmm. Good word choice. Got it here.
The only thing that was a little off-putting about it, and it could just be the recording because it's an old game. Maybe it's part of it's kind of an issue with the game rip and having very, very low volume. But I did get some like kind of annoying like staticky popping at a couple of points in the track. So that wasn't just me.
No, okay. It was not you. I'm wondering if that is the game itself or the soundtrack itself, because the version I had definitely had popping.
Okay.
Several times.
Yeah. This seems to me like kind of a, an overworld sort of exploration song, walking through kind of like a mysterious, misty forest, an evil territory, as it were.
Yeah. I was surprised by the title versus what we got, honestly. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was expecting something really sinister.
Yeah.
But no, it's just spooky. And I kind of love it.
Yeah.
There's not much to the song. I mean, it's only a couple of minutes. It really just kind of loops, but it's kind of great.
I think what really draws me to it, again, not just because there's no horns, but the title prepares you for something else. And what you get is a very eerie, very relaxing and dreamy soundscape where it's very simple. It wafts in and out, goes up and down. It's got this eeriness to it that really draws me in. I want to see what's around the next corner. I feel like, and I don't know when this takes place in the game, but I feel like the hero is in this dreamlike state or this area that defies logic, and he's discovering things to explore. And it feels like the more you think about it, that is evil territory. And what makes the area scarier is the fact that it's not as intense as I thought it was going to be. So it's like, what's happening here? What's going on around the next corner? I think this song does a really good job of capturing the mysticism and curiousness of the situation. So I think this song was definitely on my list. I wanted to mention it because it is very different from almost anything else on the soundtrack. As for my other song, because I only had 3, and we talked about Evil Territory, I was going to mention Holiness because it's a grand track. I actually really like it. It starts low and finishes strong. Vibrant horns and organs, and the horns for me actually work in this one. The prestige of a holy presence is felt here, and if there's one thing Koshiro can do, it's make that sound good. It reminded me a little bit of ActRaiser's soundtrack. There's a lot of piety here. Very, very fluid, very exciting organs. I really enjoyed this song. I think he did a really good job of showcasing other elements to this soundtrack that maybe the rest of it just really wasn't showing me. So when this song played, I was like, okay, this has some talent and some very strong composition behind it.
Yeah, it definitely... It makes me think of walking into a cathedral. Mm-hmm. Not in real life, because in real life you walk into a big cathedral and it's, quiet, feels pious, that kind of thing.
Right.
This sounds like, maybe not into a cathedral. It sounds like what you'd expect when walking, when a hero walks into like a castle's great hall.
Yeah.
In, a medieval fantasy, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that could very well be what's happening at this segment of the game. One thing that I will say about this track, and part of the reason that it kind of held it out of that top 3 for me, was how much variation there is in volume. It's very inconsistent.
Yes, I will agree with that.
You listen to it for a long stretch, like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and the music is very low. It's very subtle. It almost sounds like you're listening to it from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
boom,
very suddenly, the music jumps all the way up to 11, and you get these loud, brassy horns and, big sweeping themes, and then it ducks right back down again for another 20 seconds or so. So it makes me wonder what's happening in the game while this is playing, because it doesn't seem like, if it's a single scene, that those big variances in volume would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me want to go back to the long play and see if I can find it.
Right. Yeah. And I think the reason that, it stood out to me, but the reason I didn't really focus in on that is because I feel like the rest of the album does stuff like that, where I think the song is Aqua. Let me pick that up here, where the horns just, it starts off hot and messy with the horns, but then it kind of shudders down, goes down a little bit, and then the loop comes back. It's definitely a trait on this whole album that stuck out to me as like, okay, this is done intentionally, but at the same time, I think part of it might be the mix as well. I don't know if something just went wrong or what, but as for Holiness and its use of that, it didn't strike me as jarring as some of the other stuff, but it is definitely... if you're not paying attention, you're like, okay, did I turn the volume up by accident?
I don't want to dwell on Aqua because I know it wasn't necessarily one of the picks. If I had to say something about this particular song, and I was thinking about including it in my 3, it's probably my least favorite song on the album. The song stinks.
It's not good.
Aqua's not good.
No,
it's not good at all. No, but we don't need to talk too much about that. Let's instead talk about a song that I kind of did like a good bit, and that's The Huge Creature. It opens up sounding like a giant, intimidating, huge creature just busted out of the ground, or maybe you've spied a look at it over a ridge or from the edge of a forest. One thing that did kind of make me laugh is it sounds kind of like a tuba at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Very, very similar to like Bowser's theme from the whole Super Mario series.
I was going to say, this gives
Super
me...
Mario RPG in particular.
This gives me Yoshi's Island when you're you're fighting baby Bowser on those pedestals and you have to throw eggs into the distance. That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah. It does kind of do a little bit of wacky stuff with the volume, but I think the difference for me with this one is that there aren't long segments of low volume and then sudden jumps up to high volume. Like they're interspersed a lot more tightly, so I didn't find it as jarring. It kind of gets the message across that I was expecting. There's a friggin' big creature.
Big creature.
Probably a boss. And you're seeing it for the first time. And you're going to need to figure out how to fight it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Not a lot to say about it because it's not a very complicated track, but I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. It's consistent. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
About what you were saying about the volume, I think why it doesn't hit you that way is because the staccato strings that are really an underpin for the whole thing, they're a little lower in volume, but they're always there, right? So when the tubas come in, and they're pretty much there the whole time as well. They are louder for sure, but it doesn't feel as when they blare, it's not as big of a jump orally. Yeah. Or decibel. So yeah, I think that's probably why that one sits a little bit better for you.
I also like that there's like several layers to the song.
Yes.
And you kind of called right to it, but there's the kind of staccato strings underpinning the whole song. The tubas come and go, but they're pretty consistent. And then there's basically like 3 different instruments that make up the whole song, but they're all present the whole way through, and they're kind of following the same through line, which I really like. It doesn't sound as simplistic as some of the other songs on the album that are very, there's a single instrument playing at a given time, and they sound very simplistic.
Yes.
I like this one a lot more for that reason.
Definitely.
A little bit more layered.
Definitely. So, I mean, we could talk about a lot of different songs. It is an hour and 10 minutes. What are your final thoughts? Because unfortunately, I may have to end this one on a sour note. So I want you to be happy, and I want to hear what you've got to say.
I think that this soundtrack has a lot to give. I think that there are probably only a few standout tracks that are really quite good. The problem is, and this is kind of something that we've mentioned a few times, is that there's just too many kind of harsh, jarring, loud horns.
Yes. That
hold the whole thing back. There's a lot of songs that just sound kind of corny or very dated. There are a few that really, really stand out, though. Like, I know we're not really probably going to listen to it right now, but like the last battle theme song, I think is pretty good. Yeah. As far as like a last boss battle. Some of the other ones that we've mentioned, as kind of our picks, I think that those are the ones that kind of hold the soundtrack up, and I think would give it a respectable score in my eyes. Kind of jumping ahead a little bit, I would say if I had to score this soundtrack, it's probably higher than you might expect. I would really give it probably like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Armlets, or
that's my grading scale too,
or whatever it is. Golden bracelets, sure, whatever it is.
All right, I'll go silver since that's supposedly the bad
silver
guy.
And gold, sure. But yeah, I mean, I think there's enough here that if it were maybe cleaned up or given its proper due, it would be pretty banging.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There are moments of greatness here. And again, this is not calling into question Koshiro's ability as a composer. I think we all know that, and history knows he is one of gaming's premier, at least in the 80s and 90s, composers. No questions. I think it really is the hardware and it not being acceptable. It's just not up to his standards. And unfortunately, the horns that are ever present, they have that wow characteristic that I can't stand. It makes the instrument feel and sound cheap compared to every other instrument on this album. Otherwise, good songs tend to middle out due to the abundance of bad horns. The bells, the strings, the organs fare pretty well. It's in those subtle moments, like in Holiness, and those fleeting moments, I'll say, where the soundtrack really shines. The elegant arpeggios in Awakening, or the suspense of the song Indication, they have muted chimes. There's a lot of beauty in there and a lot of stuff that you can like. Unfortunately, very fleeting. The soundtrack, to me, is like looking through a dirty window. Little specks of light shining through while like mud cakes the rest of it. And in case it hasn't been clear, the mud, those horns. And I feel like George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg at the end. Have you ever seen The Perfect Storm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when they're trying to escape the perfect storm and they get that little bit of sunlight for half a second, and they're like, she's not going to let us out, is she? That's how I feel. Only instead of gazing at sunlight, I'm gazing at elegant instrumentation getting swallowed up by offensive horns. And a lot of that just comes down to choice of instrument and mixing. The soundtrack stays in the center somewhere as a whole, but typically when the horns come on, they are so loud, it's so jarring that it takes you out of whatever state you were in. And again, Aqua being a prime example of that. Some might say, gee, Mike, that's a sting. That's what we call a sting. Yeah, but it can be implemented very well, and it's just not here. So,
I think that a lot of it really does come down to what you've said, and that's choice of instruments. Because, you look at Koshiro's other works from even like a couple of years prior, a couple of years after, and you've got some of probably the better musical compositions in all video gamedom. I mean, we just recently talked about Streets of Rage. That was from 1991. So it's 3 years prior to when this game came out. And it is incredible. I don't know if it's just that he happened to cross the instruments that do work well on the Sega sound chip, but I said it in that episode. I wasn't expecting much out of that one. And that song, that soundtrack blew my socks off.
Yeah.
We've got Sonic the Hedgehog came out obviously the same year. It was, a launch title for Genesis, right? Right?
I think so. Yeah.
And fantastic soundtrack. It will go down in history as probably one of the best soundtracks of all time.
Oh, yeah.
ActRaiser for a different system that came out the year prior as well. And it's tough to compare because it's in SNES versus Genesis. But I feel like his musical style really maybe just doesn't really cater to this particular type of game. This might not have been the soundtrack for him.
Maybe not.
Or it could just be that he committed to those instruments that just don't really work that great on the system.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's interesting because as I understand it, he is a producer of this game.
Oh, no kidding.
So he had more to say about it than anyone, or, maybe one of the higher ups, but it's hard to say what happened here. And again, I think there are compositions on the soundtrack that show what he's capable of, but it's really just choice of instrument that really brought it down for me. I'm not going to sit here and badger it. It's 30 years in the past, and I appreciate everything else that he's done. It's just one that was just a miss for me. And it's a shame because when going into it, I didn't know who it was. And then I looked it up and my heart kind of sank because I was like, man, I'm just not responding well to the soundtrack. And, you can't like everything. There are plenty of bands out there that, oh, this album's fantastic. And then, this next album blows. I mean, I'm a huge Metallica fan, and I have heard it, going from one album to the next. People have shit to say. I happen to be one of those people that is very accepting of other styles. But this one, there are things about it I just can't forgive. And it's sorry to say that about Yuzo Koshiro.
One of the things that I did when I was getting ready for this episode, and I did get kind of struck sideways by some of the songs on this soundtrack, was I took a look at the soundtrack for the sequel to this game, because it did actually have a sequel, Story of Thor 2, or The Legend of Oasis in the States. I mean, it came out, I don't know if you took a listen to it, but it came out 2 years after this game. He fixed basically every issue that I had with the soundtrack in Beyond Oasis and Legend of Oasis. You should give it a listen sometime, Mike,
I probably
because
will.
It is like leagues beyond the Beyond Oasis soundtrack. It actually is quite excellent.
Did it come out for Genesis?
Frank. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Oh, it says, I'm sorry, Saturn.
Saturn. Okay, well, that explains it.
Saturn. So close enough. But I mean, different platform, but still, yeah. Even just the musical composition in that particular one is noticeably better. So give it a listen. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, will do, man. So you gave it 6 or 7? 7, you said?
7.
7.
Yep.
I'm going to give this soundtrack, may Thor forgive me, 4 out of 10 silver armlets. I just can't. I don't find myself coming back to this one. And it pains me to say that.
Yeah. I mean, 7's probably pretty generous, but I think I'm going to stick there because I can see the bones.
Absolutely.
Like I can see the bones to the soundtrack, and I can see the promise to it. It's just the execution and the hardware didn't permit it to really shine the way that it could.
Exactly. Hardware. Boo. Boo on the hardware.
Boo on the hardware.
I'm so sorry, Yuzo Koshiro. Please don't hate me. So yeah, that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize if you are a fan of this game. I don't think it's a bad game. I think what I saw looked very promising.
Yeah.
I think I would turn the volume down a little bit because, yeah, the music didn't mix very well, and I don't know that I could get through it at normal volume.
Yeah.
But Jesse, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I totally respect and am intrigued by our differences here. I think that's really cool. I think you're hearing stuff I'm not hearing, and I'm hearing stuff you're not hearing. And that makes for compelling discussion, because I think it's really interesting when two people have differing views on the same material. So thank you for joining me. Thank you all for listening.
And thanks for Yuzo Koshiro.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks to Yuzo Koshiro. Like, the dude's still out there making soundtracks. He just had a game soundtrack that came out this year.
Yeah.
Like, it's a killer soundtrack, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Eartheon, you should give it a listen. It's
I will
awesome.
give that a listen.
So kudos to him for all of his many years of work, and kudos to you for listening to this episode, folks. So
yeah,
see ya.
Kudos to everyone.
Kudos to everyone.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe. We very much appreciate it. Also visit our brand new website, magusmediaproductions.net, to get all information on every show. See you next time.
It's that time, everyone. The Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Magus Media Productions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/MagusMedia, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support.